How's it going, guys? I wanted to make a video because over the last few weeks, I have read several articles about the opioid epidemic and drug addiction in America, how to handle it, how to spot it, how to just pretty much everything. And then at the end of these articles, a very analytical, intellectual approach is taken to dissect going about stopping it. And more often than not, what is what is decided is for law enforcement to take up arms against said drug, get it off the streets. And see, the thing is, the one thing that's happening is people who are in a position where they are assessing drug addiction and they are assessing how to solve the problem. They are doing so. They're doing so from an abstract mindset. When you take drugs off the street, you're not solving the problem. You're pushing the problem somewhere else. Addicts will find a way to continue using, and here's why. Because contrary to popular belief, addicts are not addicted to drugs. Addicts are addicted to the relief, the feeling of joy, the altered mind state that allows them for a moment to step out of their trauma, their pain, their existence. And so if you're just aiming to take drugs off the street and you're hoping that's going to solve the problem, it's not. And it shows an utter lack of understanding. So if you want to solve the drug problem, what needs to happen is, firstly and foremost, we need to start treating each other as neighbors. We need to start loving one another, different races, creeds, sexual orientations. Let's be perfectly honest here. Okay, it's 2022. All right. If you're still racist, homophobic, prejudiced, a bigot of any way, you're a fucking idiot, and you need to evolve your thinking. There is no justification to hate somebody that you've never met. I rarely find justification to be angry at people that are specifically acting out negatively towards me, because I'm not so petty a person that I'm gonna engage in a circuit of immaturity and violence. There's just no cause for it, and it's 2022. I'll be completely honest. I'm almost embarrassed to be a member of the human race, because it's easier to make excuses for bad behavior than it is to alter the bad behavior. But that is exactly why we need to alter the bad behavior. The most dangerous man on the planet is not the person that is, running around with a machine gun. It's the person that can justify anything to themselves at for the sole reason of not having to change themselves. When people see homeless drug addicts on the street, I've been around people where they're like, look at this fucking asshole, why doesn't he get a job, why doesn't he, he's a burden on society, he's a criminal. When I see a homeless addict on the street, what I see is somebody who still is trying to push on with their life despite the incredible burden on their shoulders, be it trauma, be it circumstance, whether I don't claim to know the pains of every person, and that's kind of one of my points is, you can't assume that you know what this person has been through. You can't assume that you've had it worse. You can't assume that you would have handled it better, because unless you've lived it, you don't fucking know. So when you're looking at someone on the street like that, the thing to do is to be compassionate. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you got to bring them into your home and feed them and treat them like a member of the family, but you don't need to make life harder by spouting that ignorant bullshit into somebody else's ear who might be a weaker mind than you, which might be hard to believe, but they exist. Because at at that level, to me, the only thing worse than being stupid is spreading stupid. And yeah, that it doesn't go to improve anybody's life. If you want to take care of the problem, then take an active role in solving the problem, and learn about it. I see so many people make quick assessments, quick judgments based on things they think they know. Here's a bit of a spoiler. Most of the things that people think they know are only half the story. And that's really the case. People stop their thought process when it gets to where it makes sense to them or where it accomplishes their point. And I understand that might be a hard concept to understand, but you know, um, situations usually go further than our interactions with them. So, yeah, firstly and foremost, we need to treat each other with compassion. And then, if the goal is to help the drug epidemic, we need to start attending to the immensely complicated situation of addiction that is, people who are a product of social environment, economics, trauma, um, abuse. I mean, like, there are so many things that go into this. And the reason why drug addiction is so easy is because when things fall apart, you'll be surprised to know that you think that you'll have a lot of people there for you, but it's actually not the case. Um, there are very few people who are willing to stick around when somebody's life has come apart and help them through it. And why is that? Because we all have our own stuff going on. And you don't have to feel bad for having your own stuff going on, but you don't have to make the situation worse. If you're someone who loves an addict and you want them to be better, then you need to understand where the problem starts, and it's not with the drug. The drug is in fact um, a solution to the addict. So the problem becomes the reason that they're using the drugs, and that is often very complicated. Um, and so here's the thing: if you're the kind of person that says, okay, I'm willing to take an active role, I'm willing to help this person with their trauma, with whatever it is that's causing them to use, don't half-ass it. If you ask somebody why they're using drugs, because if you see an addict, if you find out a loved one is using heroin or fentanyl, or um, the correct response is to not get mad. The correct response is to realize, whoa, there's a serious problem here. What's wrong? Because especially opiate users, people who use opiates aren't looking to party. They're looking to quite literally kill pain. I know, because I'm a former addict. Now, when it comes to tackling the problem at its core, at its genesis, it also needs to be said that you are incapable of understanding an addict without actually having been an addict yourself. You can read the literature, you can watch all the TGIF you want, you can read books, but in my experience, the people who are attempting to help me from a place of half-cocked understanding, it's disingenuous, and the people that don't really understand, they take a stance that everything an addict says is a lie and not to trust them, and that's just that's adding to the problem. Because here's the reality. You go to a loved one and you say, I want you to be off drugs. You're going to get arrested, or you might die. The addict has already factored that into the equation. That's how you know somebody is having a serious problem, because they've already accepted the fact that they could go to jail or they could die using this drug. So once you have that understanding in place, you can see that the problem that drove them to drugs is usually pretty serious. And for a lot of parents out there, a lot of loved ones, they don't understand. And I'm going to share this with you, and it's not a pleasant truth by any means. But for a lot of addicts, you asking them to be off drugs, what you're doing is you're asking them to give up a thing that, as of this moment, has been giving them peace. Once you do that, you're asking them to knowingly submit themselves to a pain that they've already decided that they can't take. So effectively, what you're doing is, for a lot of addicts, like with me, my family came to me and they said, "We want you off drugs." I said to my family, "Well, here's the thing. It's hard because the drugs are what is allowing me to continue living. Because when I wasn't on drugs, I wanted to die. I thought about suicide all the time. Me using drugs was, in fact, an attempt to continue on living and trying to continue living while utilizing something to deal with the immense pain, the immense amount of trauma I had gone through." So when you say, "I don't care, I still want you off drugs," what the addict hears is, "Okay, so you'd rather I die than be a drug addict?" And then at that point, you have lost all moral, you've lost all authoritative, um, you know, um, um, views that the addict once had of you. Because when you tell me that you would rather I die than be a drug addict, you say that's the most ignorant thing you can say to an addict, because you're not going through that. It's easy for you to say, "I want you to be off drugs." It's easier for you to say, "Oh, well, I don't want this in my house. I don't want this." At that point, when you just say that, I don't give a shit what you want anymore, because I told you the issue and you've ignored it or shoved it to the side, and you've made my problem about what you want, which is me off drugs. If you want me off drugs, or if you want somebody off drugs, and you have no other reason other than, you don't want people seeing that and thinking you're a bad parent, go fuck yourself. You are a bad parent, probably. Because if you had been there for your child in the way that they needed rather than the way you wanted to be, they probably wouldn't have turned to drugs. That's not true for every case. I just want to say that right now. I'm not saying that's every case, but that is a lot of cases. So before you take issue with me saying that, just keep in mind that I'm not saying every parent is like that, but I'm saying there are a lot of people are. And once again, let me explain. You are not required to take on the problems of somebody else. It's not your job, and it's not fair for an addict to make you feel like it's your job, because it isn't. If it's your child, there is a certain parental kind of responsibility there to give a shit about your child, but still, you can't force people to not be selfish assholes. You know what I mean? The fact of the matter is, most drug addicts don't want to be drug addicts. I didn't want to be a drug addict, but I also knew that I did not want to deal with, the realities of what the pain that I was in. And there were times where, it was though I was being attacked by my memories, all the memories that were stored in that folder of "I don't want to remember this" would attack all at once. And um, it would almost be like a panic attack, and I would just burst into tears, and I'd shut down. So there's the very real possibility that you're not going to be able to relate to the trauma, that the problem that has, thrust somebody into the world of drugs. But what you can do is you can listen. You can listen to what they have to say. You can reach out to people who have also had to deal with this. Um, if you're looking for somebody who understands, you can go seek out an NA meeting, find somebody who's been sober for a while, and get their input on it. I've been, I'm sober. I am analytical. I am. The one thing I'm not about is I'm not about repeating history. If you repeat history, it's because you failed to glean from it the things that would have helped you to avoid it again. And if there's anything I hate more, it is when a situation that is ripe with educational value is ignored, because it keeps a lot of people trapped in a cycle of stupidity. And on a long enough timeline, that cycle usually extends to spreading that stupidity. Um, so yeah, you don't have to understand everything, but you need to acknowledge you don't understand everything. You need to be malleable. You need to understand that if you are approaching this with what you want, like I want my kid off of drugs, that's not going to be fruitful. This has to be about the addict. But this also, I don't advise using a template to apply to every situation. We're human beings. We're complicated beings. We're emotionally complicated. We're capable of, love, anger, joy all at the same time. So, it's okay to not understand. But if you genuinely want to help them, you know, you need to acknowledge that you don't understand. Listen, take in, seek out, use what they tell you. Because when you genuinely show concern for an addict, and you're not just barking orders at them, they will be honest. And they'll be honest because, they're in pain. Now, a lot of people aren't ready to, stop. And that's the other thing about it. You're never going to get an addict to stop unless they want to stop. But here's the thing. Most people addicted to drugs don't want to be addicted to drugs, but there has yet to be a solution that is of greater value to them than what they are getting with the drugs. And I also want to add to the fact that part of being a drug addict is seeking out drugs. A lot of the alleviation comes from in making your problem finding the drugs, paying for the drugs, rather than dealing with the problem. You know what I mean? And the sad fact of the matter is there are a lot of addicts out there that don't understand the psychology of what's happening to them. But they do know that they're in pain. They know that they're alone, and that's usually the main thing: is they are alone. They are, you know, um, they're in a world where loyalty is a joke, um, and they are the world of an addict is a very dangerous, a very scary, and a very high intensity situation. You know, um, and so most people don't want to be a part of that. And I say most people because there are people that not only do they enjoy it, but they thrive in it. And that's another a hard realization is you're not going to be able to help every drug addict. Because on a certain level, what you're offering has to be better than what they've chosen. And the hard part about that is without any kind of without any kind of experience to back up the value, you're going to be hard pressed. Which is why, like I said, you're not going to get somebody who is not willing to stop without fail. Every person I've seen that's been forced into rehab, forced into sobriety, they're back on it very shortly. So Sorry for the long video. So let me just, summarize by saying, um, you know, if you want to stop the drug epidemic, if you want to help people that are on drugs, you want to help loved ones that are on drugs, you need to realize that the drugs are not actually the problem that needs to be attacked. Um, you also need to understand that unless you've been an addict, you don't know. So you definitely don't want to come at somebody who knows about what you're trying to talk about. Imagine going to your doctor and telling him um, what you think is wrong, arguing with him with no medical degree. I mean, can you imagine how stupid that sounds? Um, and uh, but that also, like I said, that doesn't mean that you can't help. It just means you have to be listening. You have to be willing to put aside your prejudices about drug addiction. You have to put aside the things that you want from their sobriety. You know, um, you have to. It has to be about them. And you know, there are options when you hit a patch of black ice and you don't know what the right course of actions is. Your inability to know where to go next is in fact an honesty that you need to be clear with yourself, so you know when it's time to seek out somebody who does know. And there are people out there that care. you know I've almost lost my life many times trying to help people that didn't even know my name, because i just I don't like the idea of people being at the end of their rope and feeling like nobody cares. Um, and that's effectively the situation I was left in. My life fell apart, and all the people that I thought were going to be there to help me abandoned me. Um, there is a formula. There is a way to help addicts. There is a way to help stop the drug epidemic, but to you have to approach it where it's born. You have to attack it in the seed. Um, not all. See, if an addict has never had a job, or has it's been a while since they've had a job, they've had a loved one, they're going back into a life where at their age they're expected to do more, and society will treat them like they they are falling behind, and that's usually what leads to relapse. Because a person who's never experienced a normal life has no way of putting a value to that normal life that you are. You may be living a normal life, like this is what you need to do. It's awesome, But me when I was an addict, I also knew that all the people that said, "Hey man, come on, life is worth living," and 2 days later I'd hear them fucking, crying and, talking about wanting to drive their car off a cliff because, they were dealing with, problems with their wife or husband. Nobody is immune to the trials and tribulations that life has to, offer us. But the one benefit is most of the situations that are truly horrific are the situations that are speaking the most profound lessons to us. And for me, that was the draw for me. Was I knew about the life of an addict. I was living it. It was the repetition. It was the constantly, trying to avoid. At the end, I wasn't getting high. I was just staying normal. And the the ridiculous, um, things I would go through to just keep myself normal was insane. And, I liked the idea that even though I didn't know what a life off of drugs was like anymore, I knew that I wasn't going to learn anything new from where I was. And so for me, it was purely about opening myself up to the rest of what life had to teach me. For other people, they don't care about that. There are a lot of people out there that are entitled, that are spoiled, that think that, the only thing better than being a drug addict is, having somebody take care of me hand and foot. If that's those are the kind of people that it's gonna be hard to help, because if the only thing they're going to give up their life of addiction for is somebody to wait on them hand and foot, that's not a real expectation. And once they try to make that happen and everybody else is like fuck off, they're going to go right back to drugs. you know so you you either want to help that addict by helping them to understand that you know there's a greater value in the life you create for yourself because it's yours, than being at the mercy of somebody wanting to take care of you. And that's ultimately a way to get to a lot of addicts is you know um you and also you're never going to change the world as a drug addict. It's really not. I mean, maybe, yeah, you'll write a book or something like that, or you'll be a very gifted artist or whatever. But that's not the reason to do that. So yeah, that's about it. So I'm gonna bring this video to an end. You know, um, so once again, approach the problem where the problem is actually born. Um, don't behave as though you understand when you don't. Be willing to listen instead of talking. Be willing to seek out help. Be 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 willing to devote the time to helping someone understand the value of a life that they don't understand. You know, that's going to be the major hiccup for a lot of people is an addict who has never had a normal life doesn't know that a normal life is better, and they will rationalize that it's not. You need to make them understand, because if you live a normal life, if you're doing that, you know, you can explain to them what you like about it. You can be honest with them and explain what you don't like about it. Because as soon as someone keeps telling me all of the great things about something that they have, but I know them to be, they're not the happiest person on the planet walking around just, like with sunshine coming out of their ass, then I know they're leaving things out. And the best way to get to somebody like me is honesty all the way, because I will see through bullshit every time. So, you know, acknowledging that you are both in a situation where you're learning, that makes you both partners in the same endeavor. And that is a good thing, because that's what you want to be. You want to be a partner to somebody that you want off drugs, you know? But also, if you want them off drugs, that's not going to be enough to getting them off drugs. They need to be off drugs. And like I said, unfortunately, that's the scenario. You just wanting your kid off drugs is not enough to get your kid off drugs. Um, only by listening to each addict and treating them like a human being can you find out what these addicts, you know, want from life. 9 times I like to go to bars, and I like to ask people, like, if you could do whatever you wanted to do, you could have whatever job you want to do, what would your life look like? And they all look so surprised, because nobody has ever asked them that, and half of them haven't even asked themselves. And you would be shocked at the amount of people that don't actually know what they want, what they don't know what actually makes them happy. And that becomes another problem. If you don't know what makes you happy, then you go to what is the simple thing that's going to make you happy, and usually drugs accomplish that. Addiction is multifaceted, it is immensely complicated, but it is not insurmountable. It is not a situation that is without reprieve, without it's not a situation that is immune from um, repair. Um, so, just take those into consideration. Um, I doubt anybody will like and subscribe to this, but this is kind of what I'm going to do. I'm going to share some life lessons that I've learned in some of the darkest, most dangerous places, in hopes that I can help you avoid those places. Um, the things that I'm coming to you about are things that have almost cost me my life many times. So I gain nothing by anybody listening to this. And, you'll find in life that if somebody's trying to help you, you need to look and see what they have to gain. Because if there's anything to gain, then be sure that that's why they're doing it. But if there's nothing to gain from it, then what they're trying to do is genuine. You can reach out to me if if you're feeling lost. I will do whatever I can. I will all I can do with you is share my experiences. I can tell you that I've studied my addiction. I've done everything in my power to learn from the road that I've traveled, so as to not return there. And I can share my input, my outlook, but ultimately it'll be mine. And it may offer some kind of perspective, but I by no means have all the answers. I have not experienced what your loved one is experiencing. I either, that's the other thing too. Don't ever behave as though a person's pain is measurable, and therefore you've been in more pain than they are, so they're, you know what I mean. Every person's pain is their pain. Like if somebody comes up and tells me, well, I've been through this, so you should, I don't give a fuck what you've been through, because I don't have to live your life. I know what I've been through, and it was fucking horrible by most people's standards. So you're not going to bully anybody into sobriety either. So life is entirely perspective. So don't use your experiences to beat down on somebody else. All right. I mean, that's just, you know maybe you handled something different that was similar. Great, they didn't. So fucking move forward with the circumstances that are at hand, not what you would like the circumstances to be. It has to be, helping an addict get sober has to be a mutually educational, enlightening process. And also, you have to be aware of the notion that when you ask somebody why, some of the things that they're going to share with you might be horrific. And it helps to know that, so as to know that when you are trying to help an addict, and you feel anger towards them, or you feel like you've been betrayed, or you've been hurt, chances are, once you understand why they chose drugs, um, you'll be a little more sympathetic, you know. Um, and so that wraps things up, I wish all of you the best. Anybody who's struggling with drug addiction, if you want to reach out to me, if you're having problems, I can promise you one thing. Like, I don't know all of you, but I can promise you one thing: I give a shit, and there are other people out there that give a shit, and I will wake up out of a dead sleep. I will stop what I'm doing. Um, you're not alone out there. Um, but just know that the life of a drug addict does not yield many chances to meet somebody who is genuine. So if you feel like you're alone, it's because of the company you keep. You can't seek out You can't seek out an angel in hell, you know? So you have to be willing to make some changes. But as I said, you can reach out to me, and I'll always talk to you. I'll always, I won't ever pretend to know what you've been through. Um, I'll help whoever I can. And my hopes are that, you know, um, there are some of you out there who watch this video and who have a better understanding now of what's happening. So yeah, anyway, thank you for watching this. Yeah, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry. I think I'm gonna go tackle a burrito. Um, I made a video earlier. I should have tackled that burrito then. Um, but yeah, and there will be more videos like this. It won't always be about drug addiction. It'll be about just things that I'm trying to things I'm trying to impart to you, so as to spare you the road that it takes to learn these lessons. So take care, guys. Love each other.